In the midst of a chilly late October evening, I awoke to the insistent buzz of my phone. The name Connor, one of my closest friends, illuminated the screen, accompanied by a message that simply read, "Wanna come over later?" It was a Saturday afternoon, and during that phase of life, high school had a way of monopolizing most of my weekends. However, this particular weekend held a different promise. Connor's parents were away, leaving him in the company of his older sister, whom we'll affectionately dub Chantel. But we all knew what that meant: an opportunity to indulge in some illicit partying without the watchful eyes of parental authority. I was free of work or any significant responsibilities, so I agreed to his proposition. Onward, I headed to Connor's house, anticipating an evening of revelry. Upon arrival, we embarked on an epic Call of Duty session, sprawled comfortably on the family room's couch. Our conversation spanned the gamut from school shenanigans to sports to the intricacies of navigating the treacherous waters of teenage love. Eventually, Connor broached the topic of a Halloween party in his neighborhood. It had become a trending discussion at our high school, with a myriad of students planning to attend. Initially hesitant, I contemplated a quiet night in, but Connor's enthusiasm and persuasive charm swayed my decision. In the spirit of camaraderie, I decided to throw my lot in and attend the event. My concerns about not having a costume were effortlessly resolved as Connor produced 2 security staff shirts, our makeshift Halloween attire for the night. As the evening pressed on, we continued our Xbox gaming marathon. As the clock struck 10:30, it was my cue to depart. My energy was waning, and I yearned for the comfort of my own bed. I embarked on a quest to locate Connor, who was deep in conversation with a girl in the corner of the kitchen. Apologizing for the intrusion, I asked if it was acceptable to return to his house and call it a night. He granted my request, his attention clearly preoccupied by the young woman who had captured his interest. However, before I could exit the party, the girl he had been chatting with requested a small favor. She asked if I could venture into the basement to fetch some drinks. With a sense of duty, I consented to her request, feeling a slight pang of guilt for having inadvertently disrupted their tete-a-tete. Navigating the dimly lit stairs to the basement, I stumbled on the final steps and collided with a refrigerator. The basement, bathed in an eerie half-light, immediately drew my attention. It was there that I encountered a tall, mysterious figure, a man of approximately 35 years, shrouded in a black cloak costume. He launched a surprise attempt to startle me, emitting a playful boo. I leaped back in alarm, shouting at him through a slurred speech. What the hell was that for? The man, sensing my inebriated state, retreated and identified himself as the cousin of the party's host. Bewildered, I did not question why he was lurking in the dark basement while the raucous celebration raged above. An awkward conversation ensued, but my senses were sharpened enough to sense something unsettling about his presence. Desiring to escape his strange company, I made my excuses and sought to distance myself from him. With a simple "nice meeting you," he allowed me to retreat, a gesture of politeness that barely masked the palpable awkwardness that had taken root in the dimly lit basement. The relief I felt upon returning to the party above was palpable, and I considered the unsettling encounter a mere hiccup in the festivities. As the night evolved, I grew increasingly fatigued and detached from the revelry, my body crying out for rest. With Connor preoccupied in a flirtatious tete-a-tete, I decided that the time had come for me to head home. I approached him, seeking his blessing for my early exit, and, with his blessing, I was on my way. I embarked on the short 5-minute walk back to Connor's house, the eerie ambience of Halloween night, punctuated by the illuminated decorations adorning each house along the street. While the decorations held no real importance, the landscape seemed less menacing with the warm glow they cast. My mind churned, however, replaying the strange basement encounter and the disquieting vibes it had left in its wake. Finally arriving at Connor's residence, I found it cloaked in darkness. His sister's car was conspicuously absent from the driveway, signifying that I was home alone. Without bothering to illuminate the house, I made my way to the basement, each creaking step on the staircase punctuating the stillness of the night. As I descended into the basement, a sense of tranquility washed over me. Laying down on the couch, I surrendered to the exhaustion that had gradually seeped into my bones, embracing the solitude of the darkened chamber. 15 minutes, perhaps, passed as I settled into the languid comforts of sleep. Suddenly, my tranquility was shattered by a thunderous crash emanating from the upper floor. My eyes flew open, and I strained to discern any further signs of disturbance. For a moment, silence reigned, and I began to doubt the authenticity of the disturbance. Perhaps I had imagined it. But the eerie quiet did not last. I could hear faint, yet unmistakable creaking sounds, as though someone was stealthily traversing the floor above me. I was convinced that the source of the noise was neither Connor nor Chantel, for the sounds were far too heavy to be attributed to them. My instinct told me that it was time to leave and seek the sanctuary of my own home, so I roused myself and initiated the search for Connor. Turning a corner and gazing at the basement stairs, my heart momentarily froze. There, illuminated by the meager light from the stairs, stood the same enigmatic man from the party's basement, dressed in a black cloak costume. He stood quietly, a sinister smile playing upon his lips, his hands making a ghostly gesture that struck a chord of terror within me. I made a deliberate attempt to stay quiet, hoping that the man would simply withdraw and vanish into the night. Eerie moments ticked by, with the basement door serving as an unwelcome sentinel between my freedom and the lurking threat above. Finally, the man abruptly pivoted and soundlessly ascended the stairs, closing the basement door behind him. It was then that I hastily retrieved my phone and dialed 911, recounting the bizarre and frightening situation that had unfolded. Moments crawled by as I waited in the basement, a virtual prisoner in the room. My attempts to open the windows for an escape were thwarted as they were sealed shut. The basement door, where the man had lingered earlier, offered no escape route, and a growing sense of dread enveloped me. The police, my beacon of hope, eventually arrived. To my profound relief, they apprehended the man who had continued to lurk in the house, hiding beneath Chantel's bed. It transpired that she had returned home, ready to retire for the night, just moments before the police arrived at her doorstep. The mysterious encounter left me both baffled and unnerved. I was acutely aware that the man had followed me from the party to Connor's house, a fact corroborated by security cameras from neighboring homes. He had lost my trail as I turned a corner into the cul-de-sac, but shadowed Chantel as she arrived home. Silently, he invaded the house through the back door, his intentions remaining a macabre mystery. The incident served as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of the world and the eerie encounters that can transpire in the blink of an eye. It underscored the importance of remaining vigilant and aware of our surroundings, even in the most seemingly ordinary of circumstances. It was the heart of October, and the trees had begun their magical transformation, painting the world with warm shades of orange and yellow. My wife, Courtney, and I, a happily married couple, were determined to seize the beauty of the fall foliage. We longed for an escape to the Catskill Mountains in New York, known for its serene beauty and pristine hiking trails. Hiking was our passion. As avid hikers, we embarked on adventures across the country, seeking the thrills of exploring national parks and renowned hiking destinations. This was our third visit to Catskill, New York, and we were thrilled to be back. Our accommodation, an Airbnb, nestled in the vicinity of Overlook Mountain, was managed by a delightful lady. In respect for her privacy, we will refer to her as Kathy. Kathy, an easygoing and responsive host, had thoughtfully provided us with the key to the cozy little cabin. As we entered, we were enveloped by the rustic charm of the space. Wooden walls and floors were complemented by brightly colored rugs, creating an inviting and well-maintained environment. It was the perfect haven for two people. Surrounded by the beauty of the woods, we also discovered a shed transformed into a quaint little clubhouse, adorned with a pool table and dartboard. The walls of this charming addition held an array of intriguing knickknacks. Our hiking adventure began as we drove to the base of the Overlook Mountain Trail. Although we encountered a few fellow hikers, we were hardly alone on our journey. We paused from time to time to appreciate the breathtaking landscapes and even engaged in friendly exchanges with some of the hikers on their descent. As we reached a magnificent viewpoint, we perched on a colossal rock, captivated by the awe-inspiring cliff view that unfolded before our eyes. However, our enchanting moment was disrupted by a presence behind us. A solitary woman, around 55 years old, leaned against a tree, her eyes lingering on us until we turned to face her. Awkwardly, she averted her gaze. Her behavior was peculiar but not necessarily sinister. As we began to make our descent, she took the initiative to break the silence, offering a friendly greeting. The woman introduced herself as Melinda, a local of the area, and initiated a conversation. We shared our stories, and Melinda generously offered insights into the region, suggesting places we should explore. Her intentions seemed benign, and her knowledge of the area was genuinely helpful. As we prepared to leave, we extended our courteous farewells to Melinda, expressing our gratitude for her guidance. As we started our descent, we couldn't help but notice that she had also decided to make her way down. While this was odd, we opted to continue our hike, initially ignoring the peculiarity. However, our discomfort grew as Melinda maintained a discreet distance from us on the descent. Rather than viewing it as a harmless coincidence, we decided to stop and wait for her to continue on her way. After a prolonged pause, Melinda finally resumed her descent, her eyes locking onto us as she passed by, offering a simple okay before moving along. Once she was out of sight, we breathed a sigh of relief and continued our hike. By the time we returned to the parking area, it had grown late, and we were ready to retire to the Airbnb, located a short drive away. Our initial exhaustion gave way to an enjoyable evening as we indulged in a delicious dinner at the highly rated Garden Cafe. Returning to the Airbnb in the cover of darkness, we anticipated a quiet night. The cozy living room, equipped with a television linked to Netflix, beckoned us. Drifting off to sleep, we were blissfully unaware of the unfolding horrors that awaited us. Suddenly, in the midst of our drowsy stupor, we were jolted awake by the unmistakable sound of knocking at the door. Our Airbnb was situated in the heart of the woods, and these untimely interruptions were cause for concern. No visitors should have been here, and it was not even 10 o'clock. Fear struck our hearts as we muted the TV and waited, listening to the silence that followed. The blinds were drawn shut, obscuring our view of the outside, and the absence of a peephole in the door denied us any ability to safely assess the situation. We dared not peer through a window, as it might have revealed our presence. With trepidation coursing through our veins, we awoke Courtney and informed her that someone was at the door. A message to Kathy, our Airbnb host, asking if she was the visitor, went unanswered. We continued to listen, knowing that we should not open the door. Outside, our unknown guest persisted with insistent knocks and cries. The situation escalated further when the stranger attempted to lift open a window, an alarming sign of their intent. Thankfully, the window was securely locked. Fearing the worst, we decided to make a phone call to Kathy, who was now trying to contact us. However, our hope that she might be at the door was swiftly dashed as a woman's voice began to plead from outside. She implored us to let her in, insisting she needed help. Every alarm bell in our heads went off as we realized this was not a situation we should take lightly. In the dimly lit room, we huddled, cautiously avoiding any interaction with our unexpected visitors. The unnerving ordeal reached a terrifying climax when the voice outside informed us that someone was attempting to open the window. In our desperate search for answers, we dared to lift a blind just slightly to peek outside. What we saw sent a chill down our spines. A man strolling past the window, mercifully oblivious to our presence. We retreated into the room, the realization that this was no ordinary visitation weighing heavily upon us. We contacted 911, explaining the harrowing situation. Their guidance was invaluable, and we remained on the line, taking refuge in the knowledge that the authorities were on their way. Meanwhile, the assailants persisted with their relentless knocks and pleas, even attempting to open other windows. The man who had walked past our window continued his relentless intrusion, while our trepidation reached new heights. More men approached, creating an eerie atmosphere of invasion. As the crisis unfolded, the situation outside grew more sinister. Our desperation mounting, we turned to Kathy, explaining the circumstances and why we felt vulnerable. She assured us that none of her friends or family members would have visited our Airbnb. With her unwavering support, we remained inside, continuing to ignore the insistent visitors at the door. Finally, the visitors outside began to wane, their knocks and cries diminishing. By this point, we were no longer responding, and a prevailing sense of relief enveloped us. We knew, however, that it was not yet safe to venture outside. It took a while for the police to arrive, but when they did, they brought a profound sense of comfort. The officers were understanding, and they stayed with us, providing a reassuring presence as we tried to make sense of the unsettling situation. Our next step was to reach out to Kathy again. We explained the events of the evening and the profound discomfort we felt staying in the Airbnb. Her response was incredibly understanding, and while we paid for the night stay, we chose to abandon the remainder of our reservation. Escorted by a police officer to the nearest motel, we sought refuge for the night. Given the circumstances, we decided that a quick return home was the best course of action. In the light of day, the Catskill Mountains and our Airbnb lost their appeal. The shadow of the night's events lingered in our memories, and we were eager to put distance between us and the unsettling visitors. In the aftermath, we couldn't help but wonder if we had been targeted by a group of individuals who had sinister intentions. We considered the possibility that Melinda, the woman from the hiking trail, had been acting as a scout to gain our trust. Two young women traveling alone in the woods seemed like easy prey for those who sought to harm us. In response to this chilling experience, we took steps to enhance our safety during future hiking trips. Pepper spray became a permanent companion on our excursions, a small but vital tool of self-defense in the unpredictable wilderness. Our tale is a stark reminder that even in the most serene settings, darkness can creep in unexpectedly. In the midst of nature's beauty, we face the eerie unknown, a testament to the importance of remaining vigilant and prepared for any situation, no matter how idyllic the surroundings may seem. The town I grew up in was a picturesque rural enclave, enveloped by endless stretches of farms, rustic landscapes, and abandoned churches. Its quaint charm was marred by the presence of a few unsightly, dilapidated houses. The townsfolk were a resilient lot, though not particularly well off. Property taxes, despite being a fraction of those in bustling cities, still felt burdensome to many. Amid this tight-knit community, a cast of eccentric characters painted the local landscape, and even our amicable neighbor, while undeniably odd, contributed to the neighborhood's quirky charm. My family was no exception to the prevailing financial hardships, but our situation began to improve once my siblings and I were old enough to join the workforce. Back in the days when Hot or Not was all the rage, a mobile app that now feels like a relic of a bygone era, I connected with a girl named Sally. Our initial match transpired late in the summer, and we had been seeing each other throughout September. As the calendar flipped to October, we decided it was time for a unique and affordable date. Amidst the rural backdrop of our hometown, choices for leisure activities were limited to hiking, exploration, and indulging in local food haunts. So, on that particular day, Kelly and I decided to take an unfamiliar route in my car, eager to uncover some hidden gems. Our journey led us down a desolate road, flanked on both sides by vast open fields and expansive farmland. The scenery was marked by sporadic patches of trees and woods, providing an air of mystery to the landscape. As we ventured further into the unknown, we noticed a peculiar sign. A crudely constructed wooden picket sign with a painted arrow that simply read, "Pumpkin picking this way." The sign marked the entrance to a dirt driveway that cut through the dense fog, leading us to an old house nestled between the woods. Beyond the house lay a sprawling pumpkin patch, hidden amidst a thick mist. Despite the eerie atmosphere, we decided to investigate, parked the car next to an aging, beat-up pickup truck, the only other vehicle visible on the property, and set out on foot. Making our way into the misty expanse of pumpkins, we were immediately enveloped by an enchanting, otherworldly aura. As we explored, we couldn't help but feel like characters in a ghostly fairy tale. The fog lent an ethereal quality to our surroundings, and the pumpkins seemed to materialize out of nowhere, inviting us to discover their secrets. The pumpkin patch held a sense of quiet grandeur, with hundreds of pumpkins scattered about. The fog's embrace seemed to shield the patch from the prying eyes of the outside world. We marveled at the impressive display, their shapes and sizes ranging from small and delicate to substantial and robust. Amid this surreal landscape, we encountered a sense of wonderment that harkened back to childhood adventures. Choosing a pumpkin was no small task, as we combed through the muddy ground, our hands moist with the morning dew. Some pumpkins were disappointingly small or overly mushy, while others appeared to have absorbed moisture from the wet ground. After a patient search, we finally discovered a large, healthy pumpkin that exuded an air of sturdiness and vitality. It was substantial, and its weight spoke of its quality. Eager to show our find to the elderly couple we had glimpsed on the back deck of the house, we made our way toward the homestead. As we returned to the house, we were prepared to express our gratitude and admiration for the beautiful pumpkin. However, the deck that had been occupied by the elderly couple was now conspicuously vacant. Puzzled by their disappearance, we decided to continue exploring the pumpkin patch, attributing their absence to the mysteries of the fog. Feeling content with our newfound prize, we decided to conclude our visit and return to the car. I began executing a three-point turn on the dirt driveway, planning to retrace our route out of the pumpkin patch. However, just as I was about to drive away, the eerie tranquility was shattered by an unexpected disturbance. A man, approximately in his mid-40s, wearing a baseball cap, appeared suddenly, blocking our path. His voice was agitated and carried a note of stern authority as he yelled, "Hey, stop." Startled and confused, we lowered the car window to address the man. He wasted no time in expressing his displeasure, demanding to know our purpose, and threatening to call 911. In the ensuing chaos, both Sally and I began talking over each other, desperately attempting to explain our presence and the apparent consent we had received from the elderly couple on the back deck. However, the man's response was not what we had anticipated. He vehemently denied any knowledge of an older couple and claimed he lived alone. He continued to protest our supposed intrusion into his property. The inconsistency in his account left both of us feeling equally baffled. As we tried to clarify the situation, the man's eerie grin seemed to deepen. His gums were unusually exposed, creating an unsettling and repulsive image that sent shivers down our spines. The bizarre encounter left us feeling increasingly uneasy as we exchanged anxious glances. Nonetheless, the man retrieved the large pumpkin from our car and, with a warning that bordered on a sinister threat, he instructed us never to return to the property. With that, he spat at the ground in apparent disgust and promptly withdrew to the shelter of his home. Feeling a mixture of confusion and unease, we departed from the enigmatic scene. The fog continued to veil the mysteries of that peculiar encounter. We considered the possibility that the entire episode might have been an elaborate, albeit twisted, prank. However, as we drove away, our unease lingered, and I couldn't help but joke that the elderly couple might have been spirits, leading to an awkward, nervous laugh. Sally, clearly shaken by the unusual turn of events, urged me to refrain from making light of the situation. Her fear was palpable, and I couldn't help but share in her disquiet. The notion that we had encountered something inexplicable gnawed at our curiosity and left us with lingering chills. In the days that followed, the bizarre incident weighed heavily on our minds. My two siblings, intrigued by the mysterious events that had unfolded, expressed their curiosity to visit the same pumpkin farm. They embarked on their own pumpkin-picking expedition, with a subtle intent to gather more information from the man we had encountered. The ensuing encounter, however, only added to the perplexity. They questioned the man about the farm, the presence of the elderly couple, and whether he lived there with anyone else. The answers they received were even more bewildering than we could have imagined. The man asserted that he lived alone, leaving them stunned by the incongruity of the situation. The idea that he had been lying about the elderly couple seemed plausible, but the question remained. Why would he invent such an elaborate ruse, and to what end? A far more disconcerting and chilling possibility loomed over us, one that still haunts our thoughts to this day. What if the man had been telling the truth all along, and he did, in fact, live alone? If that were the case, then who were those mysterious individuals that had welcomed us to their pumpkin patch, only to vanish into the swirling fog? The inexplicable nature of the encounter left us haunted by unanswerable questions, driving us to consider the most unsettling possibility of all, that we had stepped into a realm that transcended the boundaries of the natural world. To this day, the fog-shrouded enigma of that fateful October day continues to puzzle and terrify, a mystery that refuses to yield its secrets to the rational mind.